Hi.
We are.
I've only just started reading your writings and listening to your DVDs. I've not wanted to come to a teaching which was the law of attraction, and I've been put off by any idea of coming to that for a long time, because I've been more following an idea of what Eckhart or other teachers would say: instead of getting what you want what you get. And so, in other words, not trying to create a reality, but trying to bring myself into alignment with that which accepts whatever reality gives.
Oh, there's power and value in that perspective, and it's not apart from what we are teaching here.
I've sort of seen that while I've been here. In a way, there's a melding of both. You both get what you want and want what you get.
Well, here is the distinction that you're looking for, and we can speak it, and you're ready to hear it, and it will click into place for you. We speak about law of attraction as the law that manages vibration. But our emphasis here is about the art of allowing, which is finding a stance, an attitude or a mood or a vibration somehow, some way, that puts you in a place where you then allow what you naturally want. And so the reason that there is so much power and absolute truth in what you just expressed to us is that when you find a way of being satisfied with what is, there's no resistance, which is the only thing that holds you apart from what you want.
Yeah.
So it is, we're all saying some of the same things. And in that sense, exactly the same thing. It's just a matter of finding your way to it. Most people offer almost all of their vibration. Let's start in another place. What you are focused upon is vibrating. And as you focus upon it, you activate the vibration of that within you. And then it becomes your point of attraction. So law of attraction answers that signal. So most people are offering their vibrational signal completely because of what they're observing. So if they're observing something pleasing, that's the signal they offer, so they get some of that back. But if they're observing something not pleasing, that's the signal they're offering, so they get some of that back. So most people are offering their signal sort of by default. They're not really thinking about it. They're just having knee-jerk responses to life. So if that's where you're at, and that's where most people are at, and then someone says to you, like where you are, people have a hard time getting their thoughts around that, because there is so much that they are observing, or maybe even so much that they're living, that they don't like. And it's a hard understanding to accept. So we sort of took an end run around that a little bit by wanting to help people to understand that we're not encouraging you to accept the aspects of your life that you don't want. So early in our explaining, we began talking about pivoting, that when you know what you don't want, you know what you do want, and try to orient yourself to the what I do want side of it, because everything is about attraction, and you are the one who is setting up the vibration that is your point of attraction, and no one else can do it for you. It's really lovely when someone comes into your experience who is pleasing to behold, because while you're pleased, while you're beholding them, then your point of attraction improves. But it's not a good thing to become dependent upon needing pleasing things to control your vibration. You never are free, and you never really feel good, and you never really become who you are until you really understand how it all fits together and get control of your vibration regardless of what's going on around you. This is really leading edge conversation that we're having here.
But, I mean, exactly like that. If you're always trying to put yourself into a better feeling tone by changing the situation for yourself mentally or physically or otherwise, then there is no acceptance or coming to terms with what was ugly or otherwise.
Well, the thing is, if you come
you try and change your reality, there's not a melding with what you find is unacceptable.
Here's the thing that there's a little stickiness going on in the conversation that we're having, and that is every subject is really two subjects, wanted and absence of it. Every wave has two sides of the wave, the sound wave, the vibrational wave. So when you know what you don't want, whether you are able to articulate it or not, there is a vibrational counterpart of what you do want. And so the question that is really the question that we're wanting you to be aware of all day, every day is, so you've got a subject activated within you. Where are you? What is the tendency that you are leaning toward? Are you leaning in the direction of the wanted or the unwanted? And most people are leaning in the direction of what they've got in terms of manifestation, because most people are leaning in the direction of whatever they're observing. And you cannot deliberately progress if you're only looking at what is. You have to be able to find a focal point beyond what is if you are to move beyond what is. Because what is can only yield you what is. So if you're merely observing, so when you put it all together and you realize that what is has created an improved version, the vibration of a question and the vibration of the answer are two very different vibrations. The vibration of a problem and a vibration of a solution are two very different vibrations. So if you are accepting the problem and focused upon the problem and dissecting the problem, then you are not a vibrational match to the solution. You might be letting the problem train you into a stronger and stronger vibration. So, but what you're saying is different. What you're saying is different from what we just said. What you're saying is not an acceptance or an embracing of the problem, but no longer railing against it. And we're saying, as long as you are not in resistance of the solution, then the solution, it's like, this is the best way we've ever said it. It's like there's a cork bobbing on the surface of the water, and that cork, in this analogy, represents your alignment with who you are and all that you want. It's enlightenment, it's love, it's worthiness, it's tuned in, tapped in, turned on, it's pure positive energy. Now you can hold that cork under the water and disallow its buoyancy. But when you let go of the cork, it's going to bob right back up. And so that's what you're saying to us. If I'm not beating the drum of the unwanted, won't I naturally rise to the surface? And the answer to that is yes, 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 yes. And that's what's at the heart of those teachings that you were talking about. And it's accurate teaching. We will agree with it wholeheartedly. It's just that people aren't very good at letting go of the cork. And almost always in their attention to the aspects of life that they do not want, they train themselves into the denser vibration rather than allowing the purer vibration. Did we clarify it for you?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, you did. I guess, I mean, for me now, my last year has been very, very difficult because I found myself going from teachings which would lighten my vibration, you would think, like the teachings of questioning thinking and so forth, so that I would come into alignment with what I see. I found that it wasn't working for me. And
well, we just explained why.
Yeah. It was more. I couldn't. It didn't float exactly. It didn't float. But
well,
what I did was, for me, my exploration has more been, instead of trying to explore what my mind is saying, is the realization that the mind doesn't, that there is no self, basically.
There is what?
Realizing that there is no is just seeing that there's only awareness in life. There's only awareness.
Brilliant.
As myself.
Yes.
And
that where you focus is how you feel. And where you focus is what your point of attraction is. And where you focus is what you create.
And it's I guess I've not seen myself ever as a creator, as a conscious creator. I've always seen myself, my role as being someone who needs to...
That's why the discussion prior to your coming into this chair today was so perfect. Because a lot of people feel that way. They see themselves as seekers of the proper path rather than creators of it and then aligning with it.
Yeah.
And the basis of that is a sort of habitual insecurity that is fostered in an environment where constant comparison has been your experience. In other words, you see, most people are not deliberately aligning with Source. They talk about it a lot, and they talk about God's love, and they want to be part of it, and they talk about compassion and love, but most people aren't in that vibration very much of the time. So instead, what they're doing is banging around with a lot of other physical beings and then comparing the life experiences of that outside the vortex, so to speak, life experience. And you can't get very far in that. It isn't until you finally begin to get a whiff of your rightness and your goodness. And so the thing that we always say to people who are standing where you're standing, who are asking and receiving answers and getting really close to feeling some resonance of it, the thing that we always say is that if you could just hear and trust this one thing that we're going to tell you right now, everything will get easier immediately. And that is, when you find a thought that is in vibrational harmony or compatibility with the Source within you, with who you really are, with what's really going on, with what your inner being or Source or God or whatever you want to call that non-physical greater knowing being is. When you think a thought that gives you a feeling of positive emotion, whether it is love or exhilaration or passion or appreciation, when that feeling is within you, it always means that the thought that you have activated right now meshes perfectly. It's a perfect vibrational match, that the Source within you knows that too. And while you're knowing what Source within you knows, you can feel the harmony of it. But when you think a thought that gives you fear, or you think a thought that makes you anxious, or you think a thought that makes you unsettled, you can know every single time that that thought, even if you've got it from the wisest seeming person on the planet, who, like a mother or a father or a clergyman or a teacher or a mentor of some kind, or a doctor, when the thought that they are inspiring or eliciting from you gives you a feeling of negative emotion, you can always know one thing: your inner being is not in agreement with that thought. So as you start allowing that to be the guidance that you're seeking, so it's not outside of you, it's not in some book, it's not on some online course, it's not in some seminar where good reports have been given by wacky people. In other words, it's not something that's outside of you, it's something that comes forth from inside of you. So as we visit with you, there isn't anything that you believe that we want you to stop believing. And there isn't anything that you want that we want you to stop wanting. We have only one thing that we desire as we interact with you, and that is that somehow we can awaken within you your realization that the Source energy part of you exists, your realization that you have, if you want it, conscious, constant connection with that, and that the joyous life that you've come forth to live hinges completely upon your understanding of and your deliberate, conscious, co-creative interaction with that part of you, you see. And if we can awaken even the idea of that within you, and then show you endless processes. We're spewing them all day, every day to help you find that and find that and find that. Eventually, we know you'll find the resonance, and that's when you'll have the knowing. Words don't teach. This is blah, 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 blah.
Esther.
Friend gave Esther the stamp. Blah, 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 blah. The stamp says blah, blah, blah. Esther says, I'm going to take that with me and just stamp it all around, because there's so much blah, 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 blah going on. It doesn't matter. Blah, 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 blah. Words don't matter. Words only matter when you feel the resonance. As Esther and Barbara are walking through the entry, and some people lined up, and so Barbara is swinging her club, getting people out of the way so that they can walk through. And as she is walking through, Barbara is covered in goosebumps. Or Barbara will say something, or Esther will say something, and Barbara will say, look at my arm. What is that? And Esther will say, that is resonance. That's confirmation. That means the thought you just thought or the words you just spoke are in utter agreement with the source within you, you see. That's the path you want to follow. And some of it you'll find in that book, and some of it you'll find in that book, and some of it you'll find in that book. And some of what you find in those books is off the path, you see. Have we distracted you from what you came to say?
I guess the essential thing is that I find that having absolute control over what my reality is feels like it's such an opposite. I'm coming from an opposite direction in my in my path.
You're not alone in this. At first, when people come to us and we say, you create your own reality, but first they say, the majority who we play with, first they say, oh good, because there's stuff I don't want, and that idea of control feels better than having stuff I don't want. But then almost immediately on the heels of I create my own reality is, I create my own reality? It's a little unsettling, because you don't feel prepared. You don't feel wise enough. You don't feel secure enough. It will come in time. But that's the message that we were giving to our friend earlier. In other words, he was wanting to tell the story a bit like you're wanting to tell the story. There is something for me, a lover or whatever, and I will find my way to it. That's sort of the story that you're wanting to tell. And there is more satisfaction in that story if you're standing in an insecure place than the story, I'm the creator of my own reality. But haven't you always noticed that whenever you have co-created with someone, whether it's a parent or a teacher, someone you trusted, a lover, haven't you always noticed that at first security feels good, and after a while security feels like bondage? In other words, you always start chomping at the bit. In other words, you can have it feels good to have mom around, sort of pointing the way, until she points you in a direction you'd rather not go. And then you start saying, I'd like to create my own reality. I'd like to create my own reality. And we promise you, you want to create your own reality. It's what your inner being knows. And your inner being knows it so completely that your inner being will not create your own reality. Esther, especially recently, has been trying to get us to do it. Abraham, can't you just fix this? We wouldn't if we could, and we can't. And we wouldn't if we could, and we can't. And we wouldn't if we could, and we can't. Because we would not for a moment deprive you of the opportunity to explore and decide. We wouldn't deprive you of the rockets of desire that are born out of your life. The rockets of desire that are born out of your life are authentic rockets of desire. But when you have rockets of desire and you haven't yet found the trail to them, then it's unsettling. And we get that.
All I can see is that I've been where I've been is trying to get out of the driver's seat, actually. Is seeing myself out of the driver's seat, totally out of the driver's seat.
Well, let's go with this. No, let's go with this. Let's go with this in this sense. Stay here, just for a moment, because what you're saying there is not off the path at all. Because what you're saying is it's interesting because here you come.
Yeah.
And
relax. That's why I
stay
came.
here. Just stay here.
No,
Just stay here. Just stay here. Just for a minute. Just stay here just for a second and listen to what we're saying to you, because where you are and where we are exactly in the same place.
And I'm about to agree with you.
Good. So stay right. So stay right here for a little bit, because you're really going to like the feeling of this. So here you come. Aren't you enjoying this? Here you come. Here you come. Acknowledging that you are new to this teaching, and yet right here taking this forum to a place that it has not been before, and to a place that it has been getting ready to go. So here's what's going on right here, right now. What you are saying is that in your releasing of control, which is what we've been talking about in the hours that we've been together, when you accept that the vortex is real, and whether you call it the vortex or someone who knows better, whether you call it what my purpose in life was before I got here, it doesn't matter. When you accept that the vortex knows everything that you are and everything that you want, and you give up control of trying to make things happen, and you give your undivided attention to complete resonance with the vortex, that's the message that we are teaching, and that's exactly what you're trying to articulate here. It's right there.
Yeah.
So much of what we do as we are interacting with our physical friends is we try to guide you. You see, if you just let go, surrender, meaning give up your resistance, the vortex will take you to that general place of well-being that you've been seeking. But it is infinitely more exhilarating when you get hold of it in a deliberate way, and you consciously acknowledge, I didn't want that and I did want this, and what I did want felt foreign to me, so I allowed myself, I deliberately trained myself into the feeling place of what I wanted, and then when it showed up, it was infinitely satisfied. And that's what our friend was describing beautifully this morning. As he gets together with this wonderful girl and they compare the life that they've been living, the reason that this moment in time that they're having is so incredibly delicious is because they each recognize how much they put there that is now being delivered to them. So it's thousands of times more satisfying to receive the delivered package of stuff that you can identify that you put there. That's the benefit that the deliberateness of creation gives. It gives a robustness, it gives a passion to your life experience that is different than if you just say, whatever will be to be, will be, and I know that I will live happily ever after.
Look, this is all on the scale of being a player in the dream. A player in the dream of life, where we're living a life where we think all this is real, and we think what we are is something going to be an expanded version of myself. And if that myself doesn't even exist, that self which we think we are is a total illusion. That there is no me, there is no I here, which has a.
Well, if that were true, you couldn't feel emotions, negative or positive, because there would be nothing to resonate with or against.
Positive or negative emotions are an occurrence of thought process, which create that through the body.
Yes, they are. They are a result of a thought process that is vibrational in nature, which are depicting resonance or lack of resonance with that broader perspective. In other words, when we talk about your emotions being your guidance, what they are guidance about is the vibrational variance between the vibration of your being that is source-based and the vibration of your being that is physically focused. In other words, if you can and until someone wraps their thoughts around that, until we are able to convince you that there is a part of you that you are playing against, that you're resonating with or you are resonating not with, until we are able to help you to feel what that guidance is about, you are right. You are sort of free floating like a cork bobbing on the ocean,
yeah.
And you are out of control, you see. And a lot of people fill in that feeling of out of controlness by subscribing to a God who holds all of the power. But then God becomes so fickle. he is not consistent. He's not what anyone wants him to be.
Yeah, no, I'm not thinking in terms of a deity or anything, of a God. I'm just thinking of seeing, like, where I've been going is that within pain, within suffering, within any heavy emotion or feeling, there is presence. There is a present being which is already awake, and it's realizing that within that space, rather than trying to push the heavy emotion away and trying to find a better feeling tone.
Pushing the heavy emotion away.
Or no, trying to find a better thought, trying to direct thought.
But those are two distinctly different things. Pushing the negative emotion away only practices the vibration of it longer.
Sure.
Reaching for a better feeling thought is necessary because the problem...
But that's so subtle. Reaching for a better thought is your feeling...
Well, that's why we're talking about getting general with it. In other words, you're right. When you're focused upon something unwanted and someone says, well, you create your own reality. You need to cheer up and find a better feeling thought. The reason that is so abhorrent to you is because it is impossible to move from that specific unwanted thought to a specific wanted thought. You can't set your radio dial on 6:30 a.m. and hear what's being broadcast on 98.7 FM. The frequencies don't match up. You've got to be in the vicinity.
Yeah.
You've got to be in the vicinity. But it also isn't a good idea to relax into the unwanted and allow the unwanted... Fortunately, you could not permanently relax into unwanted because there is enough in life that will distract you. And sooner or later, you have to sleep. And
But it's finding I guess where I've been going is finding the wanted within the unwanted. Immediately seeing what's already here, which is wanted.
Which is what
living out of being, living out of the space of being, which doesn't reject the unwanted. It accepts the unwanted. And
accepts the unwanted as a valuable part of the creation of the wanted.
Yes.
And helps you to be able to focus, because without the absence of light, the presence of light would give you nothing to see. In other words, without the unwanted, the wanted could not exist. Your ability to focus anything into being could not be if there was not the opposite with which to cause it to come into being. But the reason, we're talking about the same thing. The reason that we have so much fun mocking our own affirmation cards is because we're speaking exactly the same thing that you're speaking. To stand in defiance of unwanted by affirming that is otherwise only makes it worse. That's what you're saying to us. It only makes it worse. But what are you going to do? What are you going to do if you've developed patterns of thought that aren't serving you? What are you going to do? Well, you've got to develop some patterns of thought that are serving you. And how do you know if you're moving in the direction of a pattern of thought that is serving you? You tell by the way you feel. And why do the emotions exist within you? Because there is a point of view that is calling you home. And when you're going in the direction of who you've become, you always feel good. And when you're pulling in opposition of who you've become, you feel bad. And it does not need to be more complex than that.
Yeah, no, what I like about what you say is that letting go of resistance brings you to a space where you basically don't... there's less concentration of thought. There's more a sense of being and more a sense
That's
of
why meditation
knowing,
is such a good tool, because when you meditate, you quiet your mind. When you quiet your mind, you stop thought. When you stop thought, you stop negative thought. When you stop negative thought, your vibration raises. But training your vibration bit by bit, in other words, the newest way that we've come to explain this to you is that if you find yourself feeling good about something in some freaky, flukish moment, in other words, maybe you just got bored and stopped thinking, or maybe you watched a mindless sporting event in which you didn't have anything invested, or you didn't care, or maybe you had a massage, or you were swimming or running or something that was distracting you from a vibration. And so in the process of that, your vibration lifts. Just the cork just lifts. It just does, which is what we call going into the vortex. And then in acknowledging that you are there, just then focusing in an effort, not the right word, but in a decision to maintain the vibration, the higher vibration, for the simple reason that it feels better. And what we want you to realize is that the vortex, or that higher vibration, will train you into a frequency if you allow it to exist for a little while. In other words, a lot of people, when they first hear us, their comment is, Abraham, is it normal for all hell to break loose in my life when I begin doing this work? And we say, yeah. Because when we are able to get you to listen to us for a while, and therefore allow your vibration to raise, the more you do that, the less tolerant you are of the vibrational patterns that you have established for quite a long time. So gradually the thoughts start shifting. If you've been listening to us for a while, and you haven't, but if you go back and read some of what we've accomplished through these magnificent co-creative environments, you'll discover that we are eternal spewers of processes. But every process that we offer is toward the same result. Every process is about helping you to find a way of releasing the resistance that is unnatural but feels natural that you've picked up along your physical trail. Because we know as you peel the layers of this onion and you leave resistance behind and resistance behind and resistance behind, you're going to allow more of the rendezvous, not just with your lovers that you've been putting into your escrow, but with your ideas, with who you really are, with your worthiness, with your stability, with your confidence, with your understanding of who you are, you see. It's all working very well for you. And this has been a very interesting and productive conversation. And nearly everyone who has been listening to it has benefited by the evolution of it. Because as they hear you arguing for the limitations that are natural, many of them are happy that, because they were all where you are to some degree. And feeling the satisfaction of having left some of those things that you're still thinking that they once thought behind. However, and we're asking you this, have you ever heard more leading edge things coming from a person than what you heard here today? So you don't feel behind, you feel right out there, which means you've got desire and understanding that you're sometimes getting and sometimes not. And that's why the tension feels strong within you. That's why you want to give up. You want to surrender. You want to let go. You want to stop fighting it. You've done enough study to know that there's something in that for you. And we think together we have re-identified that here in this body of work as well. Do you agree? Do you agree? Do you agree?